From the first minutes when information about this unexpected meeting leaked online, everyone kept saying, "It can't be. Keanu is probably the calmest person in Hollywood. How did he react when faced with direct negativity?" But the facts turned out to be stronger than assumptions. One of the most famous critics, who had previously openly mocked the actor, literally forced Reeves to have a personal conversation. Moreover, everything happened without intermediaries, without cameras and a large number of witnesses. Only by chance was there a person nearby who later shared the story on social networks and caused a storm of emotions in thousands of people. What the hater said and Keanu's reaction to his aggression will change your idea of what the actor, who has always been famous for his calm disposition, is capable of. No one expected that such a sharp clash would end so unpredictably. The whole incident took place in the outskirts of Los Angeles, where numerous studios are concentrated and where celebrities often cross paths with the press and various unofficial sensation hunters. Keanu, returning from a small charity event, stopped his motorcycle at a roadside cafe to drink coffee. Usually he appeared in such places in a hat with a brim or a baseball cap, trying not to attract attention, but this time he had to take off his helmet, and passersby immediately recognized the celebrity. Those standing in line began to whisper. Some smiled sweetly, some tried to take a photo from afar, not daring to come closer. But at the table by the window sat a man of about 30 with an intense look, who for several months had been posting caustic remarks on the internet about Reeves' acting. For a long time, this critic had been making fun of Keanu, claiming that he is overrated and acts the same in all his films. His comments sometimes went beyond professional criticism, touching on the actor's appearance and even personal life. Of course, Keanu himself never responded to this in the public arena, but the man was sure that his sarcasm could expose the star. Perhaps he believed that Reeves was just a lucky favorite of the public, who was lucky in roles, or that he had a powerful lobby behind him, justifying any weaknesses in his acting. In any case, this man never tired of proving online that the world of viewers was in vain extolling Keanu. And then fate brought them face to face in a seedy cafe, where there were no flashes of spotlights, no press wall, no official events. Only a table, the smell of coffee, and the barely noticeable movement of a fan, barely dispelling the stuffiness. According to an eyewitness, it all started when Keanu, having entered the cafe, politely greeted a couple of visitors and stood in line. He did not try to overtake anyone, did not demand special treatment. On the contrary, he looked as if he himself was happy to hide for a minute from the noise of the big city. The same critic at first silently watched Reeves choose a drink and then stood up and took a few steps towards him. Those around him felt the tension. The expression on the man's face did not promise anything good. It seemed that he was barely holding back from attacking the actor with accusations. Perhaps this was a chance for him to say everything that had been boiling over, right in the face of the object of his hatred. However, at first he said only a few words, asking, "Is it true that you are here without security?" Keanu turned and, noticing that the stranger was looking at him defiantly, nodded. "Yes, I am on my own." Reeves didn't seem to realize right away that this was his longtime online foe, since he didn't often follow online comments. The man decided not to miss the moment. He came closer and hissed through his teeth that he considered the actor a hypocrite and mediocre. Even in a quiet conversational tone, one could feel the growing aggression. He accused Keanu of the fact that his entire reputation as the kindest man in Hollywood was just an advertising ploy. A tense silence fell in the cafe. The customers stopped their conversations. The barista froze with his cup. It was clear that everyone was waiting for the actor to explode, whether he would say everything he thought or lose his temper. But Reeves, according to the witness, remained calm, although his eyes showed bewilderment. It was probably strange for him to hear this to his face for no reason. And then the man moved on to harsh words, directly insulting not only the actor's work, but also some of his personal tragedies, hinting that the people around him pity him and give him breaks. This already seemed like an unacceptable blow below the belt. Here, anyone in Keanu's place could have flared up, defended their dignity, asked the cafe's administration to throw out the unruly customer, or simply left. But what happened next shocked the entire audience clinging to that table. Reeves quietly looked at the man and suggested that he go outside to talk away from prying ears. Everyone expected a scene of a grand showdown. Well, of course, the idol of millions will finally decide to teach a lesson to the annoying troll. Perhaps this is exactly what the hater wanted, a public squabble that would prove that the modest and kind Keanu is actually aggressive. But something completely different happened. The two of them left the cafe, and through the panoramic window, one could only guess what was happening there. A minute later, many customers hurried to pay and also leave to see the continuation from afar. The parking lot was sweltering with anger. The man began to say something about a two-faced image, shouting that everyone on the internet knows what you're really like. But Reeves didn't engage in a confrontation. According to one eyewitness, he simply pulled a pair of sunglasses out of his pocket and, putting them on, continued to listen with the same calm with which he usually gives interviews. When the hysterical stream of insults died down a bit, the actor slowly asked, "What exactly did I do to you that you're so angry with me?" And these words hit the man in the gut like a punch. After all, it was hard to answer honestly that Keanu hadn't offended him personally in any way and didn't even know him. But the hater, trying to save face, continued to shout out the same old complaints. "You don't deserve all this adoration, you overacted. People are making an icon out of you, whereas..." However, the callous anger, fueled by online publics, gradually began to dissipate. After all, the actor didn't swear, didn't make excuses, but only asked soft questions. "Why is it so important to you that people don't like me? Do you really think that I make people admire me?" At one point, the man stumbled and almost fell. Someone from the crowd was ready to catch him, but Keanu was the first to extend his hand and help him up. Surprisingly, this simple, friendly movement radically changed the entire tense of the situation. It was as if the hater had lost the ability to insult. He fell silent for a few seconds, looked at the outstretched hand with incomprehension, and muttered something like, "Why are you helping me?" A moment later, a very emotional monologue began, in which the man admitted that he himself had once been a dreamer, aspired to become an actor, wrote scripts, but due to failures, he began to hate both himself and those who had achieved fame. And Reeves is one of the most beloved artists by the public, who is revered even outside of Hollywood. Such a contrast between his own failure and someone else's worldwide recognition simply infuriated him. And he found a way to vent his frustration by trashing Keanu on the internet, trying to convince others and himself that the actor wasn't that good. Those standing nearby watched this confession with mixed feelings. It seemed that Reeves, having heard all this, would simply turn around and leave. But he remained standing in front of him, maintaining his calm and as if saying with his silent gaze, "I'm listening to you, continue." And when the man finished, blushing with shame, Keanu finally responded, "I'm sorry that things didn't work out the way you wanted, but my happiness or popularity is not built on your failures. We're all trying to move forward as best we can. I'm not responsible for what anyone sees in me, but honestly, if my career is hurting you, let's talk about how I can help." This last sentence knocked the critic off his feet. The man he had been throwing mud at for years was ready not only to forgive, but also to offer support. According to the same eyewitness, Keanu amazed the entire audience gathered within sight with this offer of help. No one expected the actor to think that he could be useful to a person who had been dumping tons of negativity on him a few minutes before. The hater hesitated, looked down, and then said a phrase that shocked everyone. "I'm so angry at you because I envy your talent, and even more so, the way people respect you. I think I'll never have that. And I started to believe that you were just lying to everyone. I wanted to prove that you're not perfect either." Here it is, the frankness that broke through the crust of anger. And Keanu found something to answer. I'm definitely not perfect, and you're right about that. You know, every day I remind myself that there are many actors who are much more talented than me, but I try to work and respect the audience. Maybe you have a chance to succeed if you don't give up." Such a simple formulation sounded like a moral, but it came from sincerity. The crowd couldn't believe their ears. The hater, who had tried to accuse Reeves of hypocrisy just a few minutes earlier, was now standing and almost shaking with emotion, and Keanu was holding his shoulder as if to say, "It's okay, I don't hold a grudge against you." Then the actor invited the man back into the cafe, saying, "Let's at least continue the conversation at the table. I wanted to have a coffee anyway." They both went inside, and it already resembled a scene from a movie. Such was the contrast between the situation, from a public insult to the opportunity to calmly discuss problems over a cup of latte. Witnesses claimed that the critic was hesitant to enter at first because he was very awkward, but he still followed the actor, as if led by a force he could not resist. Perhaps he already felt relieved that he could take off the mask of hatred and admit his mistakes. People who expected a scandal were shocked. No one rushed to shoot a video, because the fear of disturbing the atmosphere of a strange truce was stronger than the thirst for likes. The conversation at the table continued for another 10 or 15 minutes. Those sitting nearby heard only fragments of phrases, but it was clear that Keanu was talking about how he himself had to fight for roles, how he was initially not taken into serious projects. They also mentioned tragedies and the loss of loved ones, after which he basically looked at the whole idea of a star career differently. He explained that no fame will save a person from grief, but it is within a person's power to preserve humanity, so as not to splash out his pain on others. Hader, in turn, no longer allowed himself to be harsh. He asked questions about how to gain self-confidence if everything around him is going awry. And although the conversation remained fragmented for outsiders, it was obvious that the actor was trying to give advice and share his experience without demanding gratitude. Then came what the witness called the most unexpected scene of my life. The man, who had recently been seething with anger, smiled for the first time. Not maliciously, not sarcastically, but like a man who suddenly felt a little better. He extended his hand and thanked Keanu. The visitors relaxed and went back to their business, but everyone inside understood that they had just witnessed something unusual, a direct confrontation between a hater and his victim, which ended in an almost friendly conversation. Such an outcome seemed impossible, but it was all real. Soon the actor calmly said goodbye, saying that it was time for him to go on, paid for the coffee, and turned to his recent opponent for the last time, wishing him to find himself in life and not dissolve in anger. It would seem that the story could have ended there, but in the evening a long post appeared in one of the online communities. Someone, obviously familiar with the hater, learned the whole truth from him. "I met Keanu Reeves and told him to his face everything I wrote on the internet. And do you know what happened? He did not defend himself or blame me. He just asked why I felt that way. I answered, and I felt like a weight had been lifted from my soul. He listened to me, gave me some advice, and remained a person who does not show me how insignificant I am. He also showed that you can be strong without humiliating others. It shocked me. I realized how much time I wasted on anger. I expected a war, but received compassion." The post went viral in a matter of hours, collecting thousands of likes and comments. People accustomed to endless feuds on the internet could not believe that such a harsh troll suddenly admitted his defeat before the kindness of a celebrity. The reactions of fans and just bystanders read, "We always knew that Keanu reacts kindly to criticism, but to such an extent. If all the stars could talk to haters like this, the world would be different. I never thought I would smile reading a story about how one person chopped another with words, but it turned out the opposite. The actor healed the troll's mental wound." A heated discussion began. Some admired Reeves' self-control and empathy. Others believed that the man was simply looking for attention and was now trying to earn popularity on the internet. But one way or another, the fact remained a fact. two people clashed, and the most unpredictable result was that the hater left the battlefield not only without a victory, but also with a cleared mind, admitting that he was wrong and was ashamed of his previous aggressive behavior. Soon the man closed his old accounts, where he had previously written nasty things about Keanu, and opened a new one, where he posted a confession. "Forgive me for trying to incite hatred. Now I see the power of simple empathy and understanding. I hope one day I can do the same to someone who insults me." The fans' reaction was not long in coming. Many, of course, wrote that it's never too late to apologize, that it's better to realize your mistake than to remain in fanatical anger. Some joked that Keanu should probably open a school of diplomacy if he is so masterful at turning hostility into dialogue. But behind all this internet noise, one key feeling was always felt: surprise and admiration for how the actor was able to calmly diffuse the conflict without causing his opponent to feel humiliated or even more aggressive. It is clear that this story has further strengthened Keanu Reeves' reputation as one of the most humane stars on the planet. After all, we have heard more than once about his actions, where he shows kindness and support to strangers. But meeting face to face with a person who has publicly insulted you for years is a special test of strength. And the most amazing thing is that he did not just restrain himself, did not put him in his place, but managed to discern the tragedy and insecurity of another person behind all this hatred. It turned out that he freed him from the heavy burden of envy and self-deception. This is no longer just a gesture of politeness, but a real manifestation of empathy. People who read this story admitted that they had goosebumps. It is difficult to believe that everything happened like this, without a Hollywood script. But eyewitnesses who confirmed the episode and the former hater himself say that this is exactly how it happened. Now many are asking, did Keanu really plan all this himself? Most likely, no. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time, faced with yet another ill-wisher, and was not afraid to find out that there was internal pain hidden behind the hatred. The easiest thing would have been to brush it off or respond with rudeness, but he chose to have a dialogue. And who will call this weakness now? Weakness is giving in to anger, and strength is trying to understand the interlocutor, even if he showers him with insults. Perhaps this approach seems unrealistic in a world full of conflicts, but that is why the story sounded like thunder on social networks. People are looking for examples of how to overcome anger, not multiplying it, but transforming it into sympathy. Thus, this meeting proved once again, Keanu Reeves' reputation is not a PR manager's invention, but the result of the real behavior of a person who knows how to behave with dignity and empathy. Now thousands of haters should think, is it worth wasting energy on exposing someone who can at any moment extend a hand and offer to hear their pain? This thought sounds almost philosophical and perhaps really does carry a lesson for all of us. We often swear in the comments and laugh at each other, not realizing that dissatisfaction with our own lives can lie behind harsh statements. And if more often someone found the courage to ask, "How can I help?" the world would become a little less evil. In conclusion, I would like to say, this story is not just a funny episode about how the star of The Matrix and John Wick talked to his hater. It opens up a bigger picture. Keanu has once again proven that compassion and calmness can diffuse even the most tense atmosphere. Yes, he is not perfect, as he himself says, but his desire to understand the interlocutor, no matter how hostile he is, causes sincere admiration. Many viewers, having learned about this episode, admit that their hearts sank with gratitude for such examples of humanity. After all, if he can do this with an evil opponent, then maybe we are also capable of taking a step towards reconciliation in our conflicts, albeit less loud ones. That's why no one expected that an event that promised a loud scandal would turn into an almost therapeutic act. Perhaps this hater will eventually find a purpose or inspiration, and Reeves will continue to live by his quiet and simple rules, which, as it turns out, are capable of changing even the most inveterate skeptics for the better. Let's hope that such stories will become more than just a fairy tale for us, but a reason to remember. Anger is rarely constructive. Sometimes behind it lies a cry from the soul that can be heard and calmed if you don't miss the moment. So Keanu Reeves met a hater face to face. What happened next is shocking, is not a loud headline for an empty news story, but a real example of how kindness can prevail over aggression. If you also felt a response in your heart after this story, if you want the world to become a little better thanks to such actions, support this video with a like. Subscribe to our channel. We talk about people whose actions change usual patterns and inspire millions. And in the comments, be sure to share what impressed you the most: Keanu's willingness to listen to harsh criticism or his ability to offer help to the worst of haters. Perhaps you have your own experience of how to peacefully end conflicts. Write about it, and who knows, maybe your story will push someone to take a step towards agreement. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.